We all know the story. We see the narrow pass, the bronze shields, the capes of crimson. We hear the name Leonidas, 300 Spartans, defiant against 1,000,000 men. A glorious sacrifice, a story of honor, courage, and a beautiful defeat. But that is precisely what it was, a defeat. Thermopylae was not the end of the war. It was the catastrophic beginning of the end. While the 300 bought time with their blood, the Persian god-king Xerxes had not been stopped. He had been delayed, and now the price of that delay was due. This is not the story of the 300. This is the story of the 10,000. This is the story of the battle history forgot. This is the revenge. The aftermath of Thermopylae was not heroic. It was hell. With the pass breached, the Persian horde poured into central Greece like a pestilence. The Greek alliance, fractured and terrified, fell back, abandoning their northern allies. The road to the symbolic heart of Greece was wide open. That heart was Athens. The great city, the cradle of philosophy and democracy, was evacuated. Its people fled to the island of Salamis, becoming refugees, watching from the water as the Persian vanguard approached their homes. Xerxes, in his arrogance, showed no mercy. He ordered the city of Athens burned to the ground. The great temples of the Acropolis, buildings that had stood for generations, were looted, desecrated, and set ablaze. The smoke was a signal to all of Greece. Your gods are powerless. Your alliance is broken. Your glorious stand at Thermopylae meant nothing. For the Greeks, this was the darkest hour. Their armies were scattered. Their holiest city was a pile of smoldering ash. Despair was absolute. But the war was not fought only on land. The Athenian general, Themistocles, a brilliant strategist and a cunning politician, knew the Persian war machine had a weakness, its supply line, and that supply line was the sea. He lured the massive, unwieldy Persian fleet into the narrow straits of Salamis. It was a trap. In the tight confines, the smaller, more maneuverable Greek triremes decimated the Persian navy. Xerxes, watching from his golden throne on the shore, saw his invincible fleet shattered. Panicked, and fearing the Greeks would sail to the Hellespont and destroy his bridge back to Asia, Xerxes did the unthinkable. He fled. The god-king ran. But the war was not over. Xerxes took the bulk of his army, but he did not leave Greece defenseless. He left behind his brother-in-law, his most ambitious, most cunning, and most ruthless field commander, General Mardonius. And with Mardonius, Xerxes left the elite of his army, the Persian immortals, the best cavalry from Thessaly, elite Medes, and legions of infantry. He left him with one simple command: finish the conquest, break the Greeks, and burn what remains. Mardonius was no distant emperor. He was a wolf left in the fold, and with him, he commanded a force so vast it dwarfed any army Greece had ever seen. The ancient sources claim 300,000 men. The glorious defeat of the 300 was about to be avenged by the 10,000. This final war would not be fought between gods and kings. It would be a brutal contest of wills between two mortal men, two generals who represented the very soul of their nations. On the Persian side, Mardonius. To understand Mardonius is to understand ambition. He was not a fool. He had advised Xerxes against this invasion, but once committed, he was its most fervent supporter. He had fought at Marathon years before. He knew the Greeks, he knew their strengths, and he knew their fatal weakness, their disunity. Mardonius was a brilliant political operator. He saw the Greek alliance for what it was, a collection of bickering rival city-states who hated each other almost as much as they hated him. His army was a tapestry of the empire: Saka horse archers from the steppes, armored cavalry from Bactria, Egyptians from the Nile, and at its heart, the 1,000 elite horsemen of his personal bodyguard and the remaining Persian immortals. He was supremely confident. His force was massive, it was fast, and it was ready to end this. On the Greek side, Pausanias. If Mardonius was ambition, Pausanias was burden. He was not a charismatic king like Leonidas. He was a Spartan regent, ruling in place of Leonidas's young son. He was a man defined not by glory, but by caution. He was pragmatic, stoic, and deeply, intelligently worried. He wasn't just commanding an army. He was managing a political catastrophe. The Corinthians wanted to abandon Athens and hide behind a wall at their isthmus. The Athenians, now homeless and living in squalor, demanded the Spartans march north and liberate their lands now. The smaller states were terrified, ready to surrender, and Medes to join the Persian side. Pausanias was the glue holding this fragile weapon together, and his only leverage, the core of his army, the 10,000. 5,000 Spartiates, full-blown Spartan citizens, trained in the brutal agoge since birth, and 5,000 perioikoi, the free, non-citizen soldiers of Laconia, just as deadly. They were the single greatest heavy infantry force in the known world. This was the ultimate contrast. Mardonius's multi-ethnic, cavalry-based, chaotic horde versus Pausanias's disciplined, armored, unified phalanx. Before the final clash, Mardonius played his trump card. He sent a messenger to the homeless Athenians. His offer was generous. Surrender. Join me, and I will not only rebuild Athens, I will make you the masters of all Greece under my protection. It was a brilliant move, designed to break the alliance. The Athenians, starving and desperate, gave their answer. They turned to the Spartan ambassadors and said, "Tell Mardonius, so long as the sun follows its course, Athens will never make peace with Xerxes." Mardonius was enraged. His diplomacy, his merciful offer, had been spat back in his face. If they would not accept his generosity, they would feel his wrath. He marched his army south, and for the second time, he burned Athens to the ground. Whatever had been rebuilt was erased. This final, arrogant act of brutality was the catalyst. There would be no more politics, no more debate. The Greek army, united in pure, cold fury, finally marched. Pausanias, the cautious regent, was no longer managing politicians. He was leading an army of revenge. The two armies met near the small town of Plataea in the summer of 479 BC. The fate of the Western world would be decided on this field. Mardonius chose his ground well. He arrayed his 300,000 troops on the flat, open plain bordering the Asopus River. It was perfect terrain for his greatest weapon, the cavalry. Pausanias, ever the cautious Spartan, refused the bait. He placed his allied Greek army, some 40,000 hoplites in total, with the 10,000 Spartans holding the place of honor on the right flank. On the high ground, the rocky slopes of Mount Cithaeron, his position was defensive, strong, and near a vital source of water, the Gargantuan spring. The battle did not begin. For 11 agonizing days, the two armies stared at each other in a paralyzing stalemate. This was a war of nerves. Mardonius, confident in his numbers, began to play. He sent his cavalry, led by the dashing and noble general Mecistius, to harass the Greek lines. Day after day, the Persian horsemen would ride up, skirmish, unleash a hail of arrows, and retreat. They taunted the Greeks. "Cowards, come down from your hills and fight!" Pausanias held his men back. He knew the phalanx was vulnerable to cavalry on broken ground. He would not move. His discipline was absolute. The taunts continued until one day, Mecistius rode too close to the Athenian line. A volley of arrows struck his horse. The animal reared, throwing the general to the ground. Instantly, the Athenians were upon him. Mecistius was a powerful man, wearing a hidden coat of scale armor. The Athenians struck at him, but their spears couldn't find purchase. He fought like a lion, but he was overwhelmed. Finally, a soldier delivered a fatal blow through his helmet. The death of their most beloved cavalry commander sent a shockwave of grief through the Persian camp. The loss of this one man was a devastating blow to their morale. For the Greeks, it was the opposite. It was a sign. The Persians could be killed. Mardonius, seeing his psychological warfare backfire and growing impatient with the stalemate, changed his strategy. If the Greeks would not come to him, he would force them out. He stopped the taunts, and he launched an all-out cavalry raid, not at the army, but at its lifeline. The Persian cavalry stormed past the Greek flanks and captured the Gargantuan spring. They didn't just capture it, they defiled it. They fouled the only source of water for 40,000 men. In the same stroke, they captured the Greek supply convoy, cutting off their food. The 11-day stalemate was over. Pausanias's strong position had just become a death trap. The cautious Spartan had been outmaneuvered. His army was now surrounded, starving and dying of thirst. Mardonius had won the chess match. Pausanias was cornered. He had no choice. He had to retreat. The plan was desperate, complex, and incredibly dangerous. Pausanias ordered a nighttime withdrawal. The army would pull back in 3 divisions, under the cover of darkness, to a new, safer position closer to the town of Plataea, where they could find water. This was the moment the famed Greek disunity almost destroyed them. The retreat was a catastrophe. The Greek center, composed of over 20,000 men from the smaller city-states, was the first to move. But in the dark, they missed their objective. They got lost. Believing the battle was a lost cause, they didn't stop at the new position. They just kept going, fleeing in a panic back to the safety of Plataea itself. The Greek left flank. The Athenians saw the center dissolve and were delayed, unsure of what to do. But the real drama was on the right flank, with the Spartans. Pausanias gave the order to move, and one of his own commanders refused. A Spartan officer named Amompharitus, a man steeped in the agog, declared that a retreat was an act of cowardice. Spartans do not run. He would rather die on that hill than shame his city. Pausanias, his entire army collapsing around him, was forced to waste precious hours in the dead of night, arguing with his own stubborn subordinate. The Spartan discipline, their greatest strength, had become their fatal flaw. Finally, as the first grey light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Pausanias, in desperation, gave the order. "We are leaving. If Amompharetus will not come, he will die alone." The 10,000 Spartans and their Tegean allies finally began their delayed, chaotic retreat. Dawn broke. Mardonius, the Persian general, rode to the crest of the hill. He looked out over the battlefield, and he smiled. What he saw was not a tactical withdrawal. He saw a rout. The Greek center was gone. The Athenians were scrambling in the distance. And there, alone, exposed on the plain, was the Spartan division, seemingly fleeing for their lives. This was the moment. The cautious Pausanias, the invincible Spartans. They were broken. They were running. Mardonius's ambition turned into arrogance. He had won. He turned to his commanders. He mocked the Spartans. "So these are the men who will not flee." He gave his final, fatal order. He abandoned his strong, fortified defensive position. He ordered his elite infantry, the Immortals, and his entire cavalry force to charge. "Finish the cowards!" Mardonius, at the head of his elite bodyguard, galloped across the plain to deliver the killing blow himself. He did not see a trap. He did not see a plan. He saw only victory. What he failed to realize is that you should never, ever corner a Spartan. The 10,000 Spartans were not fleeing, they were marching, and they had just been caught in the open, in the worst possible position. The entire mass of the Persian cavalry slammed into their rear. A devastating hail of arrows rained down from the horse archers. The Spartans were trapped. Pausanias, seeing the Persian horde charging, knew this was the end, or the beginning. He ordered his men to halt on a low ridge, near a small shrine to the goddess Hera. They were surrounded. They were taking heavy casualties from the arrows. The Tegeans, fighting beside them, begged to be allowed to charge. But Pausanias, the cautious Spartan, looked to the gods. He began the sacrifices. His men were dying around him, shields splintering under the arrow storm. But the army waited. The omens were bad. He sacrificed again. The omens were bad. He sacrificed a third time, as the Persian infantry, led by Mardonius himself, began to close in. Pausanias, in anguish, looked towards the shrine and begged the gods for a sign. At that exact moment, the sacrifices turned favorable. Pausanias, his face grim, gave the command. The Tegeans charged first, a wave of desperate courage, and then the Spartans. They had been kneeling under their shields, weathering the storm. Now, as one, 10,000 men rose. They let out the paean, the blood-chilling Greek war hymn. They locked their shields. The front ranks lowered their 8-foot dory spears, and the Spartan phalanx, a single 10,000-man killing machine, began to jog downhill, straight into the disorganized, charging Persian line. What followed was not a battle, it was a collision. The Persian infantry, brave and fierce, were completely unprepared for the reality of the phalanx. Their short spears and cloth armor were useless against the wall of bronze. Their wicker shields, the spara, were shattered by the force of the charge. The long Spartan spears found purchase again and again and again. The Persians, in desperation, began grabbing the Spartan spears with their bare hands, trying to break them. But behind the first rank was a second and a third and a fourth. This was the ophismos, the push. The Spartans were a disciplined, grinding engine of death. They stepped over their fallen enemies and pushed forward. The Persian lines, a disorganized mob of individual warriors, crumpled against this unified, disciplined mass. Mardonius, still on his white horse, saw his arrogance turn to ash. He saw his elite infantry being cut down. He and his 1,000 royal bodyguards fought with incredible bravery. They formed a pocket of resistance, refusing to yield. Mardonius was the heart of his army, and as long as he fought, they had hope. But in the chaos of the melee, he was spotted. A Spartan hoplite from Pitana, named Arimnestus, saw the white horse. He saw the Persian general. He either hefted a rock or leveled his spear and struck Mardonius. The blow was true. The Persian general fell dead from his horse. The moment Mardonius died, the Persian army dissolved. Their courage, which was tied to one man, evaporated. There was no backup plan. There was no chain of command. There was only chaos. The elite bodyguard, seeing their leader dead, were the first to break. They turned and they ran. The rout was total. The entire 300,000-man army, seeing its elite flee, followed. They ran, not in a retreat, but in a mindless, terrified stampede, back to the only safety they knew, their wooden, fortified camp on the banks of the Asopus. Simultaneously, on the other side of the field, the Athenians had engaged the menacing Theban Greeks fighting for Persia. After a brutal, bitter fight, the Athenians broke them too. The victory was absolute, but the revenge was not yet complete. The enraged, victorious Greek army, Spartans, Athenians, Tegeans, Corinthians, converged on the Persian camp. The surviving Persians huddled inside, desperately trying to defend their wooden walls. The Spartans, as Herodotus notes, were bad at storming walls. They were soldiers of the open field. They were stalled, but the Athenians were not. Fresh from naval sieges, they knew exactly what to do. They charged the weakest point, and they breached the gate. What happened next was not war. It was retribution. The Greeks poured into the camp, fueled by the memory of their burned homes, their defiled temples, their fallen families, fueled by the memory of Thermopylae. They gave no quarter. They hunted the Persians down, tent by tent. The Persian army, leaderless and trapped, was shattered. When the fury of the battle finally faded, the Greeks looked around. The Persian camp was a city of unbelievable wealth. They found tents woven with gold thread. They found mountains of silver, golden bowls, jewelry, and horses. The plunder was so vast, it would fuel the Greek economy for a generation. The war was over. Herodotus claims that of the 300,000 men in Mardonius's army, only 40,000 escaped. The rest were put to the sword on the fields of Plataea. Why? Why does the entire world remember the 300 and forget the 10,000? Perhaps it is because we are drawn to the myth. We romanticize the glorious defeat. We are inspired by the story of dying for a cause. But the Battle of Plataea was not a myth. It was brutal. It was chaotic. It was a victory won by a cautious, burdened man who was pushed too far. Thermopylae was the glorious sacrifice, but Plataea was the victory. It was the ultimate, decisive revenge, and it was this victory, this forgotten battle, that ensured the future of Greece and the future of the Western world.